Okay, thank you for joining us for the Sustainability Commission meeting. Today is April 19th, 2022 at 5:34 p.m. I will turn it over to Chair Clark.
So I will call to order the April 19th meeting of the Palm Springs Sustainability Commission. And Tracy, would you take the roll call, please?
Yes, Vice Chair Friedman.
Here.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Barrett.
Here.
Commissioner Futterman. For the record, she is not on the call. Commissioner Evans is also not on the call. Commissioner Ocañas is not on the call, and Commissioner Torrens is not on the call.
Okay, so we have 4 commissioners present. Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. Deputy City Manager Flynn Fagg won't be with us this evening, and we have Program Coordinator Tracy Sheldon. Welcome commissioners and welcome visitors who are here. For visitors, there will be time for public comments later in the meeting. Please keep your microphones muted during the meeting and then raise your hand to be called to speak and then unmute your microphone. The first item on the agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. It was emailed and posted on Thursday, April 14th. Are there any comments or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is accepted. The next item on the agenda is staff comments, and Tracy has provided a memo in the agenda packet. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And I assume Tracy will probably want to highlight some of the things that are in her memo. Tracy?
Yes, thank you. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I have the staff comments that were provided in the packet. I just want to highlight that the shredding and electronic waste event is being held this Saturday, April 23rd at City Hall from 8 a.m. till noon. Also on Saturday will be the bulky items collection event hosted by Palm Springs Disposal. That event will be from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. Also at City Hall on the north end of the parking lot. The airport demonstration garden, the installation of the rock and the plants have been installed. Some of the plants have been affected this week by the winds. So we're having about 20 of the plants switched out. We're also in the process of selecting a ribbon cutting date. So that date will be provided as soon as one is solidified. We're working with city manager and city council and also with Desert Water Agency's board on availability. Commissioner Barrett, I see your hand raised.
That was quick. Where is the airport demonstration garden going to be?
So if you drive into the airport and maybe pretend you are dropping someone off for a departure, at the primary entrance and exit of the airport there, you will see the garden immediately there. So that is, it used to be grass and is now low water plants and gravel and boulders. So it's a beautiful desert scape.
Okay.
The signage has not been selected and installed yet. That is still being considered by the Airport Landscape Commission.
Okay. Okay.
So we'll keep you posted on that.
Tracy?
Yes.
I'd just like to point out, I went to the garden on Sunday and I thought it looks great. So I would encourage people to go and take a look at it. The only thing is that it's kind of tricky driving into the airport and parking, or it's probably better to park someplace off-site and walk in there. But Sunday, it wasn't that busy. So like I said, I thought it was great and would encourage people to go take a look at it.
Perfect. And even if you were to park at City Hall and walk across the street, walk past the large fountain, you will see you won't be able to miss the garden. So that's a great place to view it as well.
The only catch there is I parked at City Hall and got a ticket.
Did you really?
Yes.
For what was the infraction?
It was permit municipal code something, but they claimed that I had parked across the lines.
Really?
Oh my goodness. I'm sure there are some leaf blower enforcement that is needed that could have used the time more appropriately.
I probably didn't need to go into that, but I just wanted to caution people that it is kind of difficult, and I really didn't anticipate getting a ticket when I was the only car in the parking lot.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. That's disheartening to hear, actually.
I was going to say I'm embarrassed. My apologies. I've been continuing conversations with Desert Compost. That's the local community composting group. We have been continuing to look for a location, but also now reaching out to different 1PS neighborhoods and trying to gauge where the interest is from the community, where if they would like community composting, and if the answer is yes, where. So those conversations are continuing. And then I added energy mission control on here. I wanted to ask the commission to take a look at the documents and see if this is something that is of interest for a presentation, possibly at a future commission meeting. Emission control is based out of Sacramento. They help facilitate the California low carbon fuel standards. So I wanted to, again, defer to the commission to see if there was an interest in having a presentation possibly at the May or June commission meeting.
Do you want comment now?
Chair Clark, can we have comments now as to gauge interest level?
Sure, that would be fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I looked through the document. It looks interesting. I didn't study it real close, but it seems to be aimed at major industry, and I'm not sure. I mean, it seems like maybe something that might be of use by something like the Air Museum, or maybe some of the major hotels in some way, but it wasn't clear.
Okay.
Anybody else have comments? My reaction was pretty much the same. I don't know that it really is a strong interest to the commission. I think it probably could be focused on maintenance. Perhaps Stacy be interested in having a presentation.
I can let maintenance director Stacy Schaefer aware of it and see if her group is interested. Leaf blower enforcement. So with enforcement, we receive concerns from the community through the city's app, and also when people call into the code enforcement line. We seem to ebb and flow a bit with the number of calls. We're at a high point again. So we did have a temp worker here for a few days, and they were able to help get us caught up on some of the enforcement letter mailing. So we recently sent out 111 letters to residents where we've had multiple complaints from other community members of the use of gasoline leaf blowers, and also have sent the scholarship information to the landscape companies that have at least been shared with us, to let them know that there still are funds available for them to make the transition from gas to electric with the $750 scholarship.
Tracy, the letters go to residents at homes where there have been complaints.
Correct. Where the reported violations are occurring. And we send the letter to their mailing address, and sometimes that's a Palm Springs address, and oftentimes it is not a Palm Springs address. So we mail that to their permanent residence address. We have had a bit of an increase in the sustainability scholarships. As a reminder, our fiscal year ends June 30th of each year. So we are in kind of the final 7 to 8 weeks of receiving and being able to process scholarships. So this would be for our sustainability scholarships, our foodware scholarships. I've also asked the foodware consultants to help promote the date, because these funds will not roll forward. So we're trying to get as much of this spent as we can. So you can see there the reserved amounts, and then just what has been paid out. The beginning total is $50,000. So there's quite a bit left there to be spent.
Tracy,
Yes.
maybe I'm wondering if there'd be any value to promoting this at the next 1PS membership meeting, which was in mid-May. I mean, we do have plenty of business owners in there.
I love attending the 1PS meetings, and I think it would be appropriate because I can talk about refuse and I can talk about the scholarship and do that in just a few minutes. So I think that's a great idea. Okay.
You and I need to schedule that in April, since I'm going to be gone for a little while in May.
Okay, we'll have a conversation offline another time this week.
Okay.
And Tracy, will there be a request to, if the funds aren't going to be rolled over, will there be a sort of a similar budget allocation for the next fiscal year, or is this program just going to sunset on June 30th?
So the request has been placed for a fresh set of funds to be issued July 1st to the beginning of the next fiscal year. So all budget requests have been submitted. And so it is now time for council to go through and make decisions on what is approved and what is not. We have had the sustainability scholarship for a few years now. We do have multiple programs, both with sustainability, also with continued foodware. We also have the residential energy assessment. So we have multiple programs that can benefit from the funds. So I anticipate it being approved again, but again, we need to wait for council's decision.
Okay, but it is proposed to be continued into the new budget year. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
There was a change to how the city does its budgeting, and that began this year for fiscal year 21-22. And so we no longer roll over funds.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
And that's for all departments.
That is a change then understood, that essentially it's you got to start all over again. Then it would be helpful, I guess, probably in June for our June meeting particularly for the continuing commissioners, that they get a presentation on the budget. You can do it in June or July, but that would be useful.
Absolutely. As soon as staff receives notification, we will present that, of course, to the commission. I'd like to change tabs here real quickly. Can you view the foodware ordinance update?
Yes.
Okay, great. It was my intent to include this in the report. I wanted to provide some kind of statistics. This came from last month's commission meeting. Unfortunately, I just ran out of time when putting the report together, but wanted to share this with you today. So as a reminder, the foodware ordinance went into effect on January 1st of this year. So we are now 4.5 months into implementation. When we went through the list of businesses with business licenses, we identified 388 businesses that staff made the assumption that they provided food. So here are those numbers. So 100% in compliance of reusables is 15%. I wanted to list some of the businesses, but I did not list all of them. But this is a list of businesses that are 100% in compliance. So these are our gold stars. Colony Palms Hotel, El Jefe, Elmer's in Palm Springs, Farm, Panera Bread, Rooster and the Pig. You can read the additional businesses listed there. So we're very happy with our with businesses that are acknowledging the ordinance, taking it seriously, and being in compliance. Then when I added the figures together, we're at 31%, and this is in terms of businesses who have made progress with compliance, but they are not 100% of the way there. So some examples would be, maybe they didn't have food sorting, and now they do at refuse. So there's the landfill, recycling, and food waste. Straws, we find that straws have been a little bit of an issue in terms of leaving plastic straws. We're also finding with our coffee shops, reusables are on hand, but they aren't being provided. When you're saying, I'm having my coffee here in-house, you'll still receive it in a cup. So we're still working with mostly those coffee houses to offer the reusables. But of the 31% they're in process of compliance, Ace Hotel and Swim Club, Chill Bar, Hunter's Video Bar, Stout Burgers and Beer. So with these businesses, we're continuing to follow up with them, whether it's with phone calls or via email or on-site visits. And this is myself and also the two consultants, which are Recreate and Abby and Associates. 28% of the businesses are not in compliance at all. So styrofoam may still be in use, single-use plastic bags. And these are also some of the businesses where we're continuing to have communications, but aren't having successful inroads with them. And then 26% not applicable. Again, with that original number of 388 businesses, we made the assumption, let's use hotels as an example, we made an assumption that some kind of food or breakfast was being served at all hotels, and have found out that that is not necessarily the case. So 26% of those 388 businesses don't serve food, so we can remove them from the list. Last month, I had shared that we were having success with McDonald's at a corporate level. There was a McDonald's corporate retreat in Florida the first week of April, and we did get some disappointing news that corporate is not prepared for reusables. The reusable ware that we got from the Berkeley McDonald's, that reusable ware is not certified. And so per McDonald's corporate, the certification process has started, and it's currently in review. They said it would be several years out. So we'll need to strategize, because this isn't just McDonald's. This is similar to what we're hearing from the Taco Bells, the Carl's Jr., the Jack in the Boxes, the fast food chains. So again, there's additional work, planning, strategy is going to need to be developed as to how we can assist those types of businesses. Also, I wanted to point out the way that the ordinance is written is that beginning on January 3rd of 2023, restaurants will be required per our ordinance to provide any to-go or disposable ware as compostable fiber-based products. The processing facilities in Cathedral City and in Coachella, which are owned by Burtech, currently do not accept compostable fiber-based products, and they have no intent on accepting compostable fiber-based products. So keep in mind, our food waste organics collection is going to start for residences on October 1st of this year. We already are collecting our food waste from all of our commercial accounts, so this includes our businesses. I would like the commission's feedback. It doesn't need to be this evening, but I would like your feedback on how best to handle this, because number one, council needs to be notified, because they did want compostable fiber-based products to be used, and that's why the ordinance is written that way. But this is bad news that the processing facilities in Coachella Valley will not accept that product. And so we need to decide, are we going to change the ordinance, or what are the options for trying to convince Burtech to change what they will accept and to start accepting compostable fiber-based products. So Chair Clark, I would ask you, is this something we should put on a future agenda as either a new item or an old item or something to have further discussions on?
Yes, I think it should be on an agenda when we have more participants as well.
So we'll place it on the May agenda for
That's-
further discussion.
We'll be talking about the agenda before the week is over, so that's a candidate item for the agenda. Good point.
Okay, perfect.
And your presentation, if you could document that well in the minutes of this meeting, that will help.
Absolutely. I also wanted to list enforcement on here. This was actually an inquiry from the two consultants working on the foodware program for the businesses that are not in compliance. The way that the ordinance is written, the first violation could be not to exceed $100. The second offense within a 1 year period, $200, and the third violation to not exceed $500 within 1 calendar year. I'd also like to have further discussion on this and the commission's input. My initial response to the consultants was, we're not enforcing at this time. We are offering education and support. It has not been determined yet when enforcement will go into effect, but I think that is something to discuss and a recommendation be made to council, if any, in terms of enforcement, but just wanted to bring that up. And then with outreach,
Excuse me.
yes,
That's something we can also talk about in the waste reduction subcommittee meeting
perfect.
prior to bringing it up at a commission meeting.
Okay, perfect. We will definitely do that. And then for outreach, we had an opportunity to come up with the Palm Springs Hospitality Group. Their monthly meeting is this Thursday at 11:30 a.m. at Margaritaville. So they have been gracious enough to allow us 10 minutes to talk about the foodware ordinance and also talk about SB 1383. So that is exciting because that is going to be a good sized group. And then I just wanted to make a note on here, continued assistance with consultants through June 30th, because like other items in the city's budget and the fiscal year, their contracts will technically conclude on June 30th. And part of the budget request for 22-23 is it includes the assistance of consultants, not only with foodware, but also with 1383. But I just wanted to highlight that because, like I said, we are now in our final 7 or 8 weeks of this fiscal year.
Yeah,
So that concludes my supplemental additions to staff comments.
Yeah, Tracy, just a couple of points if you could address it. This is not an area where I have as much technical knowledge as those of the commissioners who are on Scour. So if you could, for the May presentation, make a distinction between, are we only talking about non-compliance with our foodware ordinance, or there are also kind of carry-on effects from 1383, because it's maybe you need to make a distinction because 1383 is mandatory. So anyone that says that they're going to take several years for compliance, well, it'd be great if they comply with Palm Springs law, but if a large foodware corporations aren't going to comply with rules throughout the entire state of California, that's a whole separate issue. So it'd be helpful to understand sort of where the lines are, maybe a chart or something like that to see where things are. In terms of the budget, hopefully there won't be a gap in council, though the contract can be, extended or something on short notice without having to have a whole new contract go to council and a consent calendar. I would say that, once again, for discussion next time, but if you could think about, if we have a whole bunch of people who aren't complying and aren't enforcing it, is there a way that we can think of thanking those who are the gold stars? And maybe you could give some thought, and Scour could give some thought, is that these are the folks, a sticker or a thank you, or whatever, that we want to really, they've stepped up to, forgive me, the plate, the compostable plate or whatever it is. And they're doing what needs to be done. So leaving aside the stick, if you can think of some nice carrots for folks who are doing what they needed to do.
Absolutely. And I'll be sure for the presentation to separate the two in terms of foodware and 1383, because they do overlap, but like you indicated, they are different.
Yeah.
And just to confirm, this data, these figures, this is strictly for foodware,
Okay.
because with food waste, businesses have already had to be in organics compliance since 2016 under AB 1826. So we have those figures separated out.
Okay.
So I'll be sure to keep them separated and present both.
Okay. All right. That's good then, to sort of do that then. And once again, just for the next staff report, we're not the first city in California to have a foodware ordinance, so it would be good to see what other cities are doing. If the large corporates aren't complying here, then they're not complying with other cities. So once again, some benchmarking just to sort of give some options. I think council would, we as a commission and probably council would like to know how other cities are handling, once again, probably the stick of non-compliance, but also how do you reward folks who are complying? So just a couple of thoughts for the next meeting where we can have a full discussion.
Absolutely. That sounds great.
That does raise a good question, Carl speaking. Have we looked to see what the neighboring communities are saying in terms of this?
So in terms of neighboring cities, whether that's in Coachella Valley or Southern California or the state in general, even though there were other jurisdictions that may have come out with a foodware ordinance before Palm Springs, many placed theirs on hold during COVID. So Palm Springs, we are really a leader in this, and we receive contact from other cities on a very regular basis, asking for feedback on our program. So they have really been looking to us with our experience thus far, which has been lovely. But there are other cities that have this in place, so I can absolutely collect that data and present it so that we have some benchmark data. Any other questions or comments? All right, I'm going to put the agenda back up, and Chair Clark, I hand it back to you.
Thank you, Tracy. You had a lot of good information there.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is public comments. We have our standard statement about public comments, but before I go through it, I'll ask first, do any of our visitors want to make public comment? It appears that the answer is no, so.
Jeffrey just raised his hand.
I'm Jeff. I'm with that company that Tracy so graciously showed you all. I just wanted to make myself available because my only job is to work with public agencies and municipalities. So there are a lot of interconnections between LCFS and municipal organizations that maybe aren't coming across. And so I just do want to make myself available if needed in the meantime.
Thank you. We'll note that in the minutes. Okay. So there are no more public comments. There's no presentation this evening. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from the March 15th meeting. They were emailed and posted on Thursday, the 14th of April. Are there any comments or changes on the minutes from the March 15th meeting?
Chair Clark, I don't have any comment, but we're not quorum, so this is an action. And I did check the municipal code. We are not allowed to take any action absent a quorum. I can read you the citation, but it does say a majority of the existing appointed members of the commission shall constitute a quorum, and any ruling decision or other action of the commission may be taken by a majority of those members present, provided a quorum is present. So we're not quorum, and I would ask under it's section 2.2.28020B that we defer any action that would require a vote until we become quorum. So with all due respect, I would ask that this and any other actions that would require a vote be deferred until such point as we're quorum at the meeting, if that occurs. I know I'm always the lawyer, but that's who I am. And this is something that is important that we follow the procedure. So Don will understand that this is something that was driving me, and Carl and I were both on the task force, and I do think that it's appropriate for the commissions to follow all required requirements under the municipal code and the Brown Act. So we're not quorum. It's fine to do all the presentations, but we're not allowed to make any decisions after the quorum, and that would require presence of people to vote that would need to be present. So forgive me the word from the recovering lawyer, but just, I can't turn that off. So it asks that we defer minutes until the next meeting, or go back if we do end up having a quorum this evening.
Thank you for clarifying that. I overlooked that primarily because we never really vote on the minutes. We go through the conclusion that if there are no objections, the minutes are approved. So, but technically, you're obviously correct. So we can add that approval of the March minutes to the agenda for the May meeting, along with the April minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. I do think that approval is a formal action of the commission.
Fine, thank you. The next item then is old business, and Tracy will give a report on the residential energy efficiency rebate program.
Thank you, Chair Clark. To be transparent, this has just been one of those items that I just have not had the time to invest in, primarily with the 1383 reporting, large volume of site visits to multifamilies and also our commercial businesses. So this is on my task list, and have been asking for some additional staff assistance, and just haven't been provided that yet. So as a department of one, again, just having to focus on 1383 and with the foodware implementation.
Yeah, I think that this is something that it just goes into the what I would request, because it is it's a budget allocation. So what I would request, Tracy, is you just make known to council that this will be, I think it's moving money from the existing, from line A to line B in the budget. It wasn't a new appropriation. It's exceedingly unlikely that this is going to happen before the end of the fiscal year. So I would ask that just to make sure that there is money that would be available to make that change. Now, the other question is, since the request to council that was in the draft staff report was to move money from line A to line B, is there a way to speed up the process and have it already in line B in the new budget? As opposed to having the money available and then say, well, we need to, put $50,000 or whatever into this program. So if you could sort of just discuss with staff and finance, whether that's, and then we don't even have to go to council, I don't think, that may be a little bit faster if the money is already there. If the money is already there. So maybe that's a way of speeding up the process.
Sure. So the line item for the $50,000 was included in the budget request submitted to finance. So that was included for the residential energy efficiency. In terms of how the budget was used in the past and the reference to those monies, everything starts at zero, and then funds are allocated, depending on the request. Again, the request was long and detailed. I'm hoping everything will get approved, but the likelihood of everything getting approved may or may not occur. But I know that the sustainability funds and scholarship funds, and with this residential energy efficiency scholarship, these are normally projects that council does approve, but in the past there were devoted sustainability funds. It's not like that anymore. So the process has changed and all departments start at zero, make their requests, and then we're told we will be notified prior to July 1st what was approved and what wasn't approved.
Okay, but would that still, if the money is available, does that still require, and it's in the budget for 22-23, does that still require council action and a staff report? That's really my question, of whether you still need to go through that process if the money is already in the approved budget. Because it was an internal allocation, it wasn't a new appropriation.
Right. That's a great question, and I don't have the answer, but I can certainly inquire with finance, or if finance can't answer that, my assumption would be that the city manager could answer that. So whether or not it needs to go back to council, I don't know. Was the request included in the 22-23 budget? Yes. What will be approved is unknown.
Yeah. But if it's approved, if you could sort of literally say, well, I don't need to do the staff report, the commission is allocated X, and therefore it's up to the commission to say, we have $50,000, this is a program we want to do. And to use an example from probably a little bit before your time, but when I wrote the residential, the $100 rebate program, that did not go to council. Patrick just said the money was available, and we just made it was a commission decision. So a staff report would need to be made, and I'm happy to work, but maybe it's a staff report to the commission without the whole formal procedure of going to council on even a consent calendar item.
Right, understood. I still don't have the answer to that, but again, with the budgeting process, it's completely different than what it used to be. For example, sustainability used to operate off of the franchise fees from PSDS. Also, some of the Department of Motor Vehicle tag registration fees would get funneled to sustainability. That is no longer the case. And so all of those funds are in general funds now. And so the request, sustainability is like all other departments now, in the sense of making the request for annual budget funds. But again, we just have to wait to see what council approves and what they don't. But the process is completely different than it used to be. And the city manager, he very clearly said, any problems with that can be blamed on him, because that was his decision.
Understood. Where I kind of expected that if things changed, that there was a new sheriff in town, and that's his. But anyway, if you could just say if there's a way to speed up the process to have the money already in, this is not going to happen in the current fiscal year.
Right.
Just say the money is there, assuming the money is there, council approves it, it is a request, that it's already there, and then the action item becomes at the commission level as opposed to the council level because the funds are already in the commission's budget. So that may save you some time to at least at the formality level of a council staff report.
Absolutely. And the positive thing we have on our side is that when we look at the city council's strategic plan, sustainability is 25% of that document. So that makes us, in my opinion, a strong group.
But the other point there is that this is something that the council brought up initially, and then Patrick followed up on. So there should be some way of communicating to them that we're doing this, even if we don't have to go to them for approval.
Absolutely. And the way that it was submitted with the budget request was that it was the Residential Energy Efficiency Scholarship Program.
So it should be clear in the budget.
So that it was not commingled with any other projects.
Good. Anything else? Any other questions about that program, rebate program, before we move on? So the next item is new business. We had intended to include a discussion of the vulnerability analysis that has been done by David Newell and PlaceWorks. We had a discussion with him on that, but he wasn't available this month, and that there's still some more work being done on the vulnerability analysis report. So we'll move that to May or June. Then the next item is subcommittee and commissioner reports. The first one is waste reduction.
Okay. Oh, waste.
All right, that's me again. The groups have been meeting in terms of city and Palm Springs disposal, working on the updates to the franchise agreement. We've had some really great working sessions last week. We're meeting again this Friday with both legal counsels. The list has been greatly reduced in terms of what has not been agreed upon between the two legals. So now we're to the point where those have been very clearly defined. And so now it is, can there be an agreement, or are they going to agree to disagree? And then it will go to council, but we are nearing the conclusion of those discussions between the two legal counsels. So that is a positive. Palm Springs Disposal has provided 3 different versions of rates for council to consider. Sloan Vasquez McAfee is the independent consultant who has reviewed both the updates to the franchise agreement. They also have reviewed the proposed 3 options of rates. They've given their assessment and report. So that is currently with the city manager, but none of those documents have gone to our council yet. And when I say council, I mean city council. But I'm hoping that after this meeting on Friday with the 2 legal counsels, that it can then in the very near future be forwarded to our city council.
So most likely it won't be until sometime in May.
We are looking at May because the date has pushed so many times, but again, that is because the 2 legal counsels, there's just been a lot of work on the document. When the work first started on it in February of 21, it was under the recommendation of Sloan Vasquez McAfee to completely redo the document. I wasn't part of that, but the process has been, we're now at month 14 of discussing the updates to the franchise agreement. So it just has been an incredibly long process. More so than I've ever experienced in my career working with cities. But we have continued the outreach and education efforts for SB 1383. We did get some news from Cal Recycle yesterday. This is in regards to school districts. So the way that 1383 is written is that local jurisdictions are not dictating to the school districts how to conduct 1383, but it is the responsibility of the local jurisdiction to provide the outreach and education. In our specific scenario, Palm Springs Unified School District, the district office is located in Palm Springs, even though it is the school district over the other cities within Coachella Valley. So Cal Recycle has made the determination that it is Palm Springs' responsibility to do all of the outreach and education for all of the schools within Palm Springs Unified School District. So that includes all of the Coachella Valley schools. So that is a pretty big addition. And hopefully the city will be adding additional staff soon, because that in and of itself can be full-time, I see, for a few months. Also, with capacity planning, they want that developed. And again, with all of the different reporting elements to 1383, we're just at a very, very critical time just for more staffing. Cal Recycle wants a minimum of 4 people just working on 1383. So we'll see how all that goes. Let's see. And then, of course, the foodware ordinance, I provided you with an update on that. Non-compliance with commercial businesses. Myself and Palm Springs Disposal, we spent a lot of time out in the field last week and the week prior, visiting businesses that aren't in compliance. We're really shooting for 100% compliance. And this is even with AB 341, which is recycling, and 1826, which is organic. So being out in the field and doing the site visits, we tend to have a greater success record than just with continuous phone calls or sending mailers. So while it's time consuming, it seems to be worth the efforts. Community composting, we've gone through all of the city-owned sites, and there just isn't anything available to put composting on. Whether we had the conflict with airport properties where FAA is the decider of what kind of activities can occur, and it must be aeronautical related activities. So they absolutely did not accept composting or recycling. And the request was to have one of our can recycling centers on a same location as where community composting would occur. So now the question is, does Palm Springs Disposal own a site, or, you know, is there another site available in town that could be utilized for composting? And also, again, still looking to add can recycling. That's a request from council, specifically from Mayor Middleton. She doesn't want to just have the location at Smoke Tree. She wants multiple locations throughout the city.
Is it possible to engage the tribe to see maybe if they would work with the city on a location? And I mean, that's a win-win for everyone.
I'm open to all ideas, so I think that's a great suggestion.
Probably should discuss this in more detail at the next SCOUR meeting as well.
Okay. Absolutely. The battery recycling program. So we have a little bit of a hold up, and this is just an internal hold up. This is our procurement department has said we cannot do business with Battery Solutions based on an indemnification clause that's in their quote. I have researched other possible vendors, and unfortunately, Battery Solutions is just the best vendor out there. Also, just looking at the cost that went into purchasing those collection containers that we have at the 7 different city facilities, and then just the availability of funds to replace those. So where we're at right now is we're still continuing to collect batteries but they're literally in my office. So I am surrounded by used batteries. And I'm hoping that we can come to some kind of agreement soon. I'm pushing harder than I normally do, back to purchasing, just saying, we have never had an issue. This vendor never comes on any city property. They're not in the state of California. In terms of the buckets that you return them in, it's just the safest way. There is the flammability issue. So really, again, trying to get procurement to change their mind to allow us to continue purchasing through Battery Solutions, which has been our vendor that we've been working with since either 2018 or 19. And again, we've never had any issue with them.
So Tracy, I'm not clear what happened. So I take my little box, I just had it here. I just changed batteries on my, and I take it to City Hall and I dump it in those long tubes. Then what happens with those long tubes?
So I empty those tubes out once a week. And normally I would collect them into a Battery Solutions bucket. They're prepaid for, and then they get returned to Battery Solutions. Battery Solutions.
That's
then,
by mail or UPS or some.
It's UPS that picks them up. And then they do all of the shredding, stripping, recycling of the products. And then they email us detailed reports as to which type of batteries, the weight. And then we have that certification that they were safely disposed of. So we know that they're not going into landfills, that they actually are being recycled. And so it's been a great process. So I pick those up once a week. And then also Chair Clark, he picks up the batteries from the farmer's market, because that's another location that's not listed on the battery recycling boxes, but another location that is important to the community, where they drop off their batteries. As we're coming more and more out of COVID, the collection, the volume is really even much more than it was this year, last year. I did my collection yesterday, and I think I have like 300 pounds that I picked up of batteries between all the locations. Same thing with the collection of the used toner cartridges. So those I pick up from the facilities as well, and we package those and return them back to the vendor, whether that's Brother or Xerox or whomever the ink toner vendor is.
And with the batteries, we've probably shipped 1 to 2 tons.
Wow.
Since the program started.
It's very popular. I get very excited to collect the batteries. I mean, I personally really enjoy it. And, but like I said, we just need to get, there was a clause, and it's a newer procurement manager who's newer with the city. And so there was a flag on some language on the quote document, and that language caused her to say, we cannot have this vendor on our vendor list.
Yeah.
What about Palm Springs disposal? They do e-waste also themselves. They can't help us with this or help us work through this or something like that.
I've escalated it to the city attorney for him to review the language and for him to make a decision as to whether we can, is this a bad agreement for the city to be involved in? What is the risk level of using them as a vendor? I think the risk level is low or none. I think it was just this particular staff person that flagged it and said no.
Tracy, is it a new agreement? Because we've already had it, so I'm just surprised. So they're going back and saying the agreement that you've had for what, 5 years, something like that, is now no longer going to work. So
right, and the language hasn't changed. It's nothing new. It was just a new set of eyes.
All right, well, that's definitely, hopefully the city attorney, we've lived with it, no indemnification so far. I would tell you, wearing my former attorney hat, and I'm sure Commissioner Baker would agree, the risk is very low. They're not on site, and they, presumably under the contract, assume any risk they agree to accept delivery of what clearly is a hazardous material. So the risk, shifts to them. So
Mhm.
if they're not on site, I think this is one of those city attorney can get as comfortable as one could be on this, and even if the agreement isn't quite written the way.
Exactly.
Sometimes you
And
just have to make that sort of gut feeling as to say which is more important, a perfect arbitration clause or a very successful program that the community wants to have and participates actively in.
exactly. Well, and Chair Clark has been added to the email strain. So now we have, we have the big guns behind us.
And I have a lot of history with the program.
Absolutely. So I'm hoping that helps push it forward or give the city attorney the level of comfort needed.
All right, thank you. I think that would help. Well, I have one question going back to 1383 with the school district is there any funding available from either the state or the school district to help the city assume this new obligation that, but for the sort of geography, wouldn't occur, that you're basically going to have to go into Rancho Mirage, Cathedral City and DHS and train a lot of people in there, in their school buildings? And is there funding for that or somewhere?
So the city did apply for the available funding for 1383, and my memory seems to say it was around $60,000. So we did apply for that. The CalRecycle has not made any notifications to any of the jurisdictions yet as to who is being recipients of the 1383 grant monies. But my feeling is that financial responsibility is just falling with the local jurisdictions. I mean, when CalRecycle said a minimum of 4 staff, per city, there was no advertisement of grant funds for that request. But it's just the volume of reporting and programs and everything associated with 1383. Like I said, I haven't started on the capacity planning yet. We have all the edible food recovery. I mean, there's many, many more pieces of 1383 that aren't in place yet for Palm Springs. We just really need staffing or really need a consulting firm with several people for the support.
And on top of that, the $60,000 wouldn't even cover anywhere, just the city.
Right.
But there's no availability. You can't sort of go hat in hand to the school district and said, we're going to be literally going outside of our city boundaries to do training in your cities, in your facilities in the other cities. Can you help out? And that's not going to happen. It sounds like it's sort of Deer Palm Springs. Good luck.
We just received this notification yesterday.
Okay.
So there hasn't even been time yet to have those conversations yet. But my plan is to reach out to the other sustainability departments within the other cities, because we already have a group formed. And because I also want to be respectful and not step on anyone's toes. So also approach it as a partnership.
Yeah.
But Palm Springs will be graded on it.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you, unfunded mandates.
Yes. So that concludes my update.
Good point.
Real quickly, I just wanted to add part of the attachments. I wanted to share some of the new outreach materials that have been developed to go out to residents. And so we have the new, what goes into the blue cart recycling, what goes into the, what's going to go into the green carts, because we are, we're now on high drive of outreach and education, getting the word out. We had a presentation at the library yesterday, an opportunity to share the information with folks. So also all of the stickers will be adhered to the carts and bins this summer. So another thing I learned today, the trash carts that are currently the rust color will be painted gray, because gray is the refuse landfill color that Cal Recycle has dictated. So that will occur beginning in June, and then stickers will be placed on each and every cart and bin that Palm Springs Disposal owns. That will also include a QR code so that folks can take a picture of that QR code, and it'll take them, if it's a blue bin, it'll take them to the list of what's the acceptable materials. Same thing for landfill, same thing for food waste. Now that concludes my report.
All right, and Tracy, one more question. It says for plastic containers 1 to 7. So that's aspirational recycling, but the PSDS is saying it, I have my usual existential clamshell. Is this recyclable or not? And trying to sort of look at the number as I think it was 1, 2, and 5 that were the good ones and not the others. But it sounds like it doesn't matter, and they'll take it and they'll figure it out. Is that, am I correct? The 1 to 7, we don't have to look for the teeny number.
So keep in mind that this list, while it is on Palm Springs Disposal's website, this is per Burtec, because Burtec is the owner of the transfer station in Cathedral City. So we're going off of what Burtec is saying they will accept. So that's where the 1 through 7 comes in.
So, but that's the question: is should we make the we call the triage between 1, 2, and 5 and others, or just throw all plastics, assuming that they have a number in the recycling? That's never been all that clear to me.
So per Burtec, yes to the plastics, and yes to numbers 1 through 7.
Okay.
Because we were given a previous direction, like you said, 1, 2, and 5.
Okay.
But per Burtec, again, because they're the owner of Edom, the facility at Edom Hill, this is what we're going off of for right now.
Okay. All
think-
right.
Importantly, it's Burtec is the owner of the MRF.
Okay.
The recyclables are sent, and that's where they're sorted. But it's the same company, but it really is the MRF people, material recovery facility people, that are dictating that.
And this is the same issue with the food waste being bagged. Again, this is not a city of Palm Springs direction. This is not a Palm Springs Disposal direction. This is the direction from Burtec, the owner of the facility, saying, yes, we want the food waste bagged, because not all facilities in California are doing that, because those plastic bags just go into landfill after they're opened on site. But again, this is the direction from Burtec. I suspect that they will get pushback from Cal Recycle at some point to make changes, but we need to wait. We need to wait for Cal Recycle to make that push towards them.
And in the process, you have to be ready to get that pushback from the citizenry about, why are we putting plastic bags?
But the opportunity to go out and speak at so many different community groups has been really helpful, because then they're not just reading it on a website or receiving it in an email or receiving it in the mail. It's having some kind of positive effect, I feel like, when they're hearing it from a person and saying, being as transparent as we can, giving the information and just letting them know. I mean, this is going to be a learning curve. This really is the biggest change to solid waste collection since recycling in the 80s. And so this is all going to have a learning curve.
Yep.
Chair Clark, I turn it back to you. You're muted, Chair Clark.
Thank you. We'll move on to ad hoc subcommittee on strategic planning and general plan update. I'll give a brief report on that. Our subcommittee did have a meeting with David Newell on March 16th, and the major topic was, the major thing we wanted to discuss was incorporating the sustainability plan into the general plan. And the conclusion was that the sustainability plan is updated more frequently than the general plan. So it really didn't make sense to embed the sustainability plan into the general plan, but it was agreed upon that it made sense to put the principles of the sustainability plan into the safety, circulation, and housing elements of the general plan. So we've made that agreement, and that information has been captured, and hopefully that will happen in the future. The next item is ad hoc subcommittee on environmentally preferable purchasing policy. This is something that we brought up for the first time at our March meeting, and it had been discussed at the city council meeting, and it was requested that the Sustainability Commission make some recommendations on that document. So at the meeting, I and Vice Chair Friedman agreed to participate, as did Commissioner Evans, and subsequently Commissioner Barrett said that he would participate as well. We have some documents to review, and we have a meeting scheduled for Monday, April 25th at 2 p.m. The next is solar and green building. David?
This report will be quick. I continue to work on the 2 ordinances, which was the for the renewable energy ordinance for cannabis and large commercial businesses. I do have the cost effectiveness analysis from the cannabis consultant, and I'm waiting to hear back from SCE on the amount of energy that's used by large commercial businesses. And just as Tracy is busy in capacity issues, I will hopefully get to that in the next couple of weeks, so that we can sort of discuss outreach and come up with a plan of council. Once again, this is clearly a capacity issue on both my end and then staff issue. So we'll see what we can do. The other ordinance is the existing home energy efficiency model ordinance. That's done, except I'm still discussing with the Reach Codes team whether we can figure out together how to include multifamily units, and I'd like to try to do that so that there's just one ordinance for both single and multifamily ordinances. That is a harder lift from the Reach Codes team. And at some point, and I'm having a call with them tomorrow, I'll mention that, we may just decide that we'll keep it simple, and single family is roughly 3/4 of the housing stock, but we'll see. I haven't given up, but at some point I have to make the decision of whether we go through with that or not. But otherwise, that ordinance is done, and I'm discussing tomorrow with the Reach Codes team. I'll be speaking with them on a panel at the Municipal Green Building Conference next month. So I continue to be active on that. It's virtual, although there are some folks on site in Los Angeles. And the Energy Commission launched a new round of EV charger funding on April 5 with priority for low-income communities and multifamily dwelling sites. And Tracy, I've sent that announcement to you if there's any potential sources of funding. That's first come, first serve. So we should look at that. And then somewhat relevant to green building solar, and Tracy, I'll send you an email. It is, I think it'd be useful to find out what exactly the city's EV charger system is working. We're getting some somewhat conflicting information from Edison. So I'll follow up with Edison on that. But if you could follow up with staff, and I'll send you a quick email this evening on that. And that'd be useful also for our discussion on the purchasing policy for next Monday. And that's it for green building solar, but I have a lot more to cover in DCE.
David? David?
Yes.
With regard to the first ordinance, the renewable energy for large businesses.
Yeah.
Conversation I had with Flynn a few weeks ago, he said that that was going to have to go back to the Planning Commission.
Not that I'm aware of, because it was essentially not from the when we had the study session back in September. He said that that was not going to need to go to the Planning Commission for the simple reason that I'm not touching the zoning code. This is a requirement. This is under Title 8. This is all under the building section, so it does not in any way respect the zoning code. Now, if they want to do it, they want to take another look at it, that's fine. But the discussion from back in September, when we did take the ordinance to planning for the study session, the conclusion after that was we didn't need to go back to planning because we're not touching the zoning code.
We'll have to clarify that with him.
That's fine. Once again, it isn't that's for him to do. The ordinance does not amend the zoning code, but I have no problem taking it to the planning commission to get their views on it. If that's his call.
We'll have to take care of that. Thank you.
That's fine. But I need an ordinance, and I'm not quite there yet, although SCE is working on the last data point. That ordinance, with the exception of that finding, is pretty much done. And I have cost effectiveness data.
Thank you. The next item is World Environment Day. Commissioner Futterman is not here. I know we have a flyer in the agenda packet. Do you have any comments from her, Tracy?
We have the flyers. Commissioner Futterman also was able to forward me some social media postings as well yesterday, image appropriate ones, so that we can post on the city's Facebook and also Twitter. So we have those, and I confirmed with her that we would share appropriately. And then also I said that the library puts on a lot of events and has a great contact list, so that I would get in touch with Julie Warren and ask Julie to also help promote the contest through her library contacts as well.
Great, thank you. The next item is Dark Sky. Commissioner Ocanius is not here. I think the last time we discussed this, she and Commissioner Futterman had come up with a draft flyer to include approved lighting sources along with the energy efficiency rebate program. So really that's the next step that we can expect from them. The next item is bicycle routes and cycling. Commissioner Torrens is not here. Water conservation.
Thank you, Chair Clark. So DWA board met this morning, and I updated them on the airport demonstration garden because they're one of the funders. DWA is participating in the low-income household water assistance program, and that will allow DWA customers to apply directly to Riverside County for relief funding of up to $2,000 on a first come, first serve basis. And that program should be launched pretty soon. So Tracy, you can coordinate with Ashley. That would be a good thing to publicize on the city website and social media. It literally is $2,000. I've seen the form, very simple. And it also covers late fees, and there's no specific time frame. So that's money that could be directly available for our residents to clear up their water bills. And then it's not raining anymore. So Governor Newsom issued an executive order at the end of March on the drought emergency, and each of the water agencies throughout the state are going to have to go to level 2 of their water shortage contingency plan. And then there'll be irrigation ban on non-functional turf, which is the medians, and I believe the city's already doing that. So DWA is expected to implement the new stage. It's under their existing plan that was approved last year and it's consistent throughout the Coachella Valley. Each of the agencies has a water shortage contingency plan. So that's expected to go out to the board by the end of May, and I'll report back to the commission at that time. And that's it for water, or lack of water, as more accurately.
Maybe we should change the title there. Thank you. Wellness, do you have a report on the ordinance, Carl?
Hi, yeah, we sent it over to Human Rights Commission. I haven't heard back from Eduardo Edmond yet, but we did send the final version over them for review.
Okay, so once they've...
Yeah, Jay, it went to Jay, so it definitely made it on the agenda because Jay acknowledged receipt.
Okay, so we'll find out
Yeah, as soon as I know, yeah.
about it, and then we can take it up at a future commission meeting.
Yep.
And we did learn that the council would like to deal with it in May or June.
Okay.
And And finally, Desert Community Energy.
Okay, lots of things going on at my new day job. The Community
That's right.
Advisory Committee met on March 28th. Thank you, Commissioner Barrett, Commissioner Baker, two loyal members of the CAC. And then the board met on April 11th. And DC is focusing its outreach message on helping customers save money in the hot summer months. So there'll be a lot of information there. Ohm Connect, and that's something, Tracy, that you've been publicizing. There's a new program that, it's the same program of a free smart thermostat or smart plugs, but the new deal is you'll get $5 off for each of your first 2 months. And so we'll get you the materials so you can update the city website, because there's already some information on there. DC staff and consultants met last Wednesday afternoon with Mayor Middleton, Councilmember Coors, and City Manager Clifton, discuss helping promote all the hospitality related businesses that are using 100% carbon-free power in Palm Springs, given how important sustainability is in younger tourists deciding where to travel and where to stay. So we'll have some programs, and once again, good messages to get out via Tracy, you and Amy. So we're working on the messaging there. City Council approved a support letter for AB 1814, which would have authorized CCAs like DC to apply for transportation electrification funding. However, it was pulled by the author because of stakeholder opposition. So not clear what we'll be able to do in the transportation electrification measure, absent sort of state funds. But it's on the program, but we won't have the funds that we are hoping to be able to apply for next year on that. There will be a few slides on DC at the State of the City presentation at the Plaza Theater on May 3rd, and we're thanking the residents and businesses for their role in helping Palm Springs achieve its 2020 GHG reduction goals through Desert Community Energy. You recall in the, for those of you who saw the PlaceWorks memo from last May, that was the conclusion of the PlaceWorks team, is that thanks to DC, Palm Springs met its goal, and we want to thank our residents and businesses for that. And then finally, staff from CVAG, meaning myself and our sister agencies in Western Riverside, San Bernardino counties, working on the implementation plans for the Inland Regional Energy Network. And I'll be making a presentation sometime next month for IREN on the solar app permitting platform and Energy Commission funding that will soon be available to cover some of the costs for cities to implement solar app. That will be a very simple process, but the challenge in Palm Springs, and Tracy, I'll follow up with you, and Tasia, and also Flynn, is to get Palm Springs to implement that and be a trailblazer. There is actually money, very simple, $40,000 for Palm Springs. Councilmember Woods was at the E&E committee. He asked if we would get some more money, but the CEC's already set the terms, and cities lower than 50,000 population get 40,000, but that's probably more than enough to cover and the implementation, and we'll continue training under IREN for that. So that's it for DCE, and obviously for IREN, I'll be continuing to work with staff after July 1 on all those matters.
See, the next item on the agenda, if allowed, is the election of chair and vice chair.
It's not. Forgive me, but it's not.
I'd like to challenge that, because in anticipation of not having a quorum, we asked people to vote separately.
Nope. I'm not going to. I checked the municipal code. Folks have to be present. With all due respect, I'm not comfortable with that. Unless you got a view from the city attorney or the city clerk that that's allowed, that does not seem to be consistent. I'll go back to the municipal code. Any ruling or decision or action of the commission may be taken by a majority of those members present, provided a quorum is present. We do not have a present quorum. And if we had 5 people, I would be fine. We don't have a quorum. If we had 5 people, I would have said, have the vote for the 5 people and ask the city clerk whether you can count the extra votes. But unless you've raised that issue with the city clerk, my reading of the municipal code is we just can't do it. I'm sorry, but I just follow the rules. So with all due respect, I'm going to ask that that be deferred because we're not quorum.
You recall the intent, though, was to provide some time to overlap.
I understand that. I understand, but we're not quorum. That is a decision. It's clearly a decision of the, let me go to the shall elect its membership from a chair and vice chair, but that's a decision. Okay, it's an action by the commission. We're not quorum, and people who aren't present can't vote. I'm not sure where the sort of ballot came from, with all due respect to you, Chair Clark and staff. But I have never, ever seen that in any sort of city commission of people who are not present being able to vote. I simply don't think that's authorized under either the municipal code or the Brown Act. And I'm not going to, I don't know, if you want to do it and note my opposition for the record, if you do that, I would ask staff to sort of go to the city, go specifically and get a ruling from the city clerk and the city attorney saying, could we do this? I don't think we can. I was chair of the transparency committee of the task force. This is something that I spent a lot of time looking at, and I'm just not going to say that we can do something without a quorum and with people voting who are not present. I just can't reconcile that with the Brown Act or the municipal code. I'm fine with the intent, but we're not quorum, and no, we're not quorum. It would have been 5 people, I would have been fine, but it's an action. We can do it next month, and with all due respect, I follow the intent, but we're not quorum.
David,
Yeah,
David, yeah, I appreciate and understand and agree with your position on that. Since there are only 2 candidates and the intent was to provide a lead time, are we at any great risk if we start providing that lead time, even though we don't have a decision?
not at all.
No,
Are you saying we can't do that, or we could do that?
can do
We can't
that.
provide
You
that lead
cannot
time.
have, well, let me put it this way, there's no problem with informal discussions with the 2 candidates.
Mhm.
And I think it's fine for Tracy and for you to mention that here are the 2 candidates, and there are no other candidates. But and we can say, and thank you, Don, for saying that, is to say, can we do this outreach and sort of coordination? The answer to that is to say, these are the 2 candidates. We'll be happy to do that, and it would be up to the full commission when it's quorum to make the election next month. And I'm perfectly fine with that.
So we can do the process, but we can't make the formal decision until we
Yes.
have a quorum.
That is fine. And forgive me for once again being the lawyer around here, but I'm just, it's just really important to me that we follow the municipal code and the Brown Act. So the process is fine. If you want to say who are the 2 candidates, and we can work and do the necessary coordination, including joint coordination on the agenda. And also, it would be fine to have the election at the beginning of the meeting and pass the gavel literally at the beginning of the meeting. So all of that is absolutely fine, but I would ask that we defer the formal election to when we are quorum.
And the reason for having the election at the end of the meeting would be that the new chair would not have been familiar with the process of running the meeting. And so he would just adjourn the meeting and then could take over for the next meeting.
Okay. I sort of defer to you and the candidate for chair who's sat in an awful lot of meetings, whether it's there to sort of do that training. I think I recall, and Roy, weren't you elected to the, I seem to recall that there was a gavel passing. Maybe it was effective July, but I thought when Joe, when you were elected chair, that there may have been a gavel passing, maybe not, but that's fine. That doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to be as flexible as possible, given the constraints of the Brown Act and the municipal code.
He was off the commission when I was elected chair.
Okay.
In January of 2019.
Okay. So was there a gavel passing, or did you just wait until the next meeting?
I just started the January.
Okay. I just wasn't sure, whatever. So I'm fine with everything except a vote.
Well, Tracy and I will work offline. We'll talk to the city clerk and see what the options may be.
Okay. I'm not sure that there's, I mean, the option, the city clerk discussion is, do you want to have an election without folks there? If you think there's a risk of a quorum or potentially people not being present next month, then I would ask, can people not present of a meeting participate in a vote? I think you're going to get the answer to no. And particularly since AB 361, which I didn't check, just I believe that requires, and forgive me, I didn't have notice. I'll check on that and I'll send you to a note. But once again, I believe for AB 361, for you to be deemed present under AB 361, you have to be connected via electronic means.
Okay, so that was an assumption on my part, anticipating that we might not have a quorum, which came to pass. The intent is to make an efficient transfer.
Okay.
I think we can still do an efficient transfer. Roy, I'm comfortable with it.
That's fine.
And in
And forgive me for
preparation of
being a
the May
lawyer.
meeting, I'll make sure to inquire and include you, Chair Clark, inquiry with both the city clerk and also with the city attorney as to what our options are for May, should we be in the same position where we don't have a quorum.
Okay.
So we at least have those options in
Yeah,
advance.
would appreciate that outreach, just to do that then. And offline, I'll take a quick look at AB 361, Tracy and Roy, so you have that. But I believe the requirement is you're connected via Zoom or whatever other electronic platform is available.
Mhm.
Okay. So now we will move on to commissioner comments and upcoming agenda. Don, you don't have to run this part of the meeting.
Actually, I think David would be okay with me running it. I mean, I don't think it's
But
I can do it the same way you would. So
gravel hasn't been passed, so we'll go around the room. See if there are any other comments or thoughts on future agenda items. So, David.
There is one that I had requested from last November and got pulled, and that's the various policies that council will be considering on public records. So some compliance issues that I believe it's on the agenda for this coming Thursday of the social media policies. And that should be, I think, probably July or September if the ordinance is passed on first reading Thursday. Second reading is next month and 30 days. So it won't be into effect until June. And that's probably, if we think they're going to be new commissioners in July or no later than September, that would be good there. So Tracy and Roy, I'll send you that note, but it's sort of parked into the future. I just think it'd be useful for the new commissioners to have that training. Well, for all of the commissioners, but particularly the new commissioners, of which there will be a lot. Starting in July. And that's it for my agenda.
Is this one of the things that you had requested before, but Anthony?
This is exactly what I had requested before. It was pulled from the council agenda. I didn't get a chance, but I believe when I checked that it's on the council agenda for this Thursday. If you give me just a second, and forgive me, I didn't get a chance to take a look at that. Hold on, folks, if you could call me back, Roy, I'll send an email after the meeting. I believe it's on the agenda for Thursday. But yes, it's what I asked for last time.
And we had asked Anthony to speak on it, but obviously the information wasn't ready, so we'll have to work through the clerk's office.
Yeah, exactly. Give me just a second. Okay, I'll get back to you, but there it is there. It's 1K, it's under the consent items, adoption of electronics systems and record policies recommendation 1K. Anyway, Tracy, I'll send that, also include that in my note. but it would be a July, I think July or September, depending on when you have the new group of commissioners. Thank you for indulging me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carl, do you have anything else?
Nothing further.
Dawn?
My main concern is just all of the things that Tracy gave in her report that we really need to put a lot of work onto.
Well,
And not something we need to worry about real soon, but there is some sort of initiative statewide about banning all single-use plastic or something like that coming up. And I don't have a lot of detail on it. It just was in some piece of news recently.
I think there are two things happening. There may be a referendum for the ballot in November, but I think the
Right.
Assembly is also, or the state legislature is also considering some possible bills.
That will affect us.
Right. Okay, I have something. And that is, I don't know if everybody got the email, but at the city council meeting on this Thursday, the 21st, there's going to be a review and discussion of boards and commissions. And that's item 3B in the agenda. And Tracy, can you put that up, please?
Yes. Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
And I don't want to spend any time on it. Tracy, could you send this to everybody after the meeting?
Will do.
I'd like to skim through it quickly and just look at the challenges that are there.
Perfect. Is there a challenge section in the document?
You'll hit it soon.
Okay.
Here it
Perfect.
is.
Here we go.
There's a list of 10 challenges that are going to be brought up before the council, and they're here. But in addition, there's a study session planned for June 21st, which is envisioned as being a joint meeting with the city council and the boards and commissions. By the way, there are 14 boards and commissions, so I'm not sure exactly how that meeting is going to work, but it's scheduled for the 21st of June, which happens to be the day of our regular meeting. You can see quickly, I'll just read the first one. The city currently has 14 boards and commissions, including one committee, most of which are created to advise council on policy, but sometimes participate in administrative work. Recommendation is to realign ordinances, bylaws, and practices to reflect advisory roles. Delegate administrative work to the few commissions, such as planning and architectural review. What they'll be looking for really is feedback from the commissions and boards on these recommendations for each of the challenges. Let's take a look at number, let's see, just a simple one. Number 3, all commission meetings were instructed to be held at 5:30. This creates some scheduling conflicts. You'll recall that commission meetings were all changed to be at 5:30. Many of them had been in the afternoon. That was about 2 years ago, when there was an initiative to make sure that meetings were available to as many citizens as possible. So the recommendation is to consider allowing meetings to be scheduled at other times. There are challenges regarding having varying practices with bylaws. This is number 4. And a recommendation to create template bylaws for all commissions. So not knowing exactly how the study session is going to be held, Donna and I have talked about this. And what we'd like to do is get feedback from all the commission recommendations. So Tracy will send this document out to you, but to make it easier, Don and I will meet ahead of time and we will take a first cut at the recommendations from the commission, which will make it easier for us to discuss the recommendations at the meeting in May. So Don and I will be doing that soon. And then our feedback, or our document will be provided prior to the commission meeting in May so that we can have a discussion on that at the May 17th commission meeting. And then that document can be forwarded to the city council. And also we'll learn more about the study session, but everybody is encouraged to participate in this study session as well. But I think it'll help to have prepared positions from the Sustainability Commission. Also, you're welcome to attend the city council meeting this Thursday. Are they in person now, or is it still online?
Both. So it's a hybrid. So you can attend in person, but it's also being presented online, because we do recognize that there are still several community members who are not comfortable meeting in public yet. So it's both.
So I would recommend that all of you and the others on the commission do participate in the meeting or watch the meeting. And it may be easier just to watch the video the following day, and then you can just watch that particular agenda item and see what the discussion is about. I'll probably do that, but this will be in preparation for our discussion in May to prepare for the study session in June. And the one thing that we need to discuss, not at this meeting, is when to meet in June, because it looks like the study session will conflict with our meeting. Turns out that going from May to June, there are 5 weeks between meetings. So we could conceivably have a meeting the week before and still have 4 weeks between the May meeting and the June meeting, which just gives us more time to prepare. So, but that's something that we'll have to defer to the meeting in May to decide. Is there any comment or discussion on that?
Just if you could make clear what exactly, I'm looking at the staff report, just what exactly you're looking for. The input, is it open-ended, or are there specific questions that you and Tracy and Don will be sending us?
What we're going to do is we're going to reply to the recommendations.
Okay.
On our knowledge and experience. And as you know, I've been on the commission for years. So there are examples of things that are talked about there that, you know, we've dealt with in the past, like grassroots efforts, initiatives from the commission, and communicating them to the city council. That's one of the things that's in there as a challenge. So really for now, if you could just read it to become familiar with what the challenges are, but we will provide a document for us to discuss and comment on at the May meeting. If you have anything that leaps out when you read this, please let Don and me and Tracy know. But for now, it's just a matter of being familiar with what the council wants to address.
That's fine. There's something that's missing from there, but I'll put that in my email.
Okay.
Where I think council, it would be a recommendation that we've already made to council, but it's not in the recommendations.
What is that?
Council liaisons. What's cruelly missing, unless I've missed it, and forgive me, I just haven't had a chance to read all of the council staff reports. What seems to be missing, unless it's somewhere else, is a recommendation that there is a designated council liaison from each of the commissions, and some regular process of quarterly sort of check-ins between the council and the commission. Because it's nice to say that the commissions lack direction, but there has not been any direction given by council members. There was an active liaison, and Chair Clark, I think you remember the good old days, and that hasn't happened for quite a few years.
That's under challenge 8.
That's something.
Report feeling disconnected from council. Blah, 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 blah. So it goes on. It does recommend.
And attend commission meetings. Okay, fine. So that is okay. One annual meeting tram. Okay, so that, thank you. I just hadn't looked at it to sort of see where that is. I would prefer the alternative, but I'll reflect that in my comments. Thank you for pointing it out. I just hadn't had a chance to go through the thing yet.
Roy, do you want my thoughts?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, no, I've looked through the whole thing, and much of it seems to be things that are sort of addressable. depending on how they decide to address them. I was concerned about challenge 7, which is the one that talks about an annual cycle of strategic planning, and it didn't seem to leave a lot of flexibility for commissions to come back with, oh, we need to be addressing X, Y, or Z. But challenge 8 seems to sort of contradict challenge 7 a little bit. So it's just something to attend to. I haven't worked it all out in my brain yet as to how that works, but those are the biggest concerns to me. It's challenge 7, 8, and actually number 9.
Well, we'll be sure to capture those since we're meeting together to come up with a proposed recommendation from the commission, and then there'll be room for more input from other commissioners at our May meeting.
Yeah, that was my going to be my point, is that hearing how other commissioners interpret that will be very helpful.
I've had discussions about this with Flynn and with Justin, and I think it's recognized that some of this doesn't really reflect the Sustainability Commission. I think we've been seen as being successful in terms of communicating with the city council and having them accept or deal with things that we've proposed, but we just need to make it clear, the way we think it should be done, and we can refer to past history where we're successful doing that. So, are there any other comments on that?
I would just add that your assessment is accurate.
Okay,
In a positive way.
thank you. So, without any, David, are we going to be allowed to adjourn the meeting?
Yes. We simply met and had it's absolutely fine. And this has happened. I think, Carl, you've seen it, and Don at DCE at the Community Advisory Committee, which is Brown Act. We didn't have a quorum, so we just did staff reports and we deferred all action. But it was a meeting. Tracy, I would think that at the beginning of the meeting, you would simply note, which is what I did for working with CVAG staff, is that we did not have a quorum, and accordingly it was discussion only. No formal action was taken. You can sort of note that, and that's exactly how I wrote for when I was attempting to be the Green Building Solar Committee, and it was just me. Said no quorum was present. Accordingly, this was and Roy, you weren't an official member, so I simply said no quorum. Tracy, I'll put that in an email, and you can copy and paste that. That's the formula that I had.
Thank you.
So all of that will be in the email shortly. And
So,
thank you for indulging my legal sort of brain here.
So with that, our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 17th at 5:30 p.m. And hearing no objection,
We're not allowed to object.
meeting is adjourned. And I'd like to talk to Tracy and Don